Alright guys, welcome back to another operaomnia video where we are about to talk about the upcoming two weapons to be dropping in global, which will be Garland's BT weapon and Seven's LD weapon. We're going to talk about both of them in this video and kind of determine whether or not it is worth pulling for both of these units' weapons. And of course, with the gameplay in the background, it will show what Seven will actually be doing in game in global. But for Garland has his BT plus right now in JP, so there is no way that I am able to show actual gameplay of him performing on how he is going to perform when he arrives on global with his BT weapon, because he got a rework and he got a BT plus, so the difference is pretty night and day. So this gameplay is pretty much just here to, I don't know, give you guys some entertainment in the background while I talk about Garland's BT weapon and Seven's LD weapon. So we're going to talk about all of that in this video. So as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for future content. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's first talk about Seven's LD weapon. So Seven's LD weapon is called Rose Thorn. It equips with the LD ability called Diving Strike. It inflicts a 2-stack debuff of the snake bite to the target for 6 actions, and it is a 4-hit melee brave plus HP attack executed twice. It allows for 150% Stolen Brave Max Brave Overflow, and it deals 50% splash HP damage to other targets after her last HP attack. It also grants her the Generous Heart buff to herself for 4 actions. Now, after you use the LD ability, her HP attack turns into HP attack Capture Whip, which is a 2-hit melee brave plus HP attack. It increases brave damage dealt to targets afflicted with the snake bite debuff by 50%. It allows for 120% Stolen Brave Max Brave Overflow, and it deals 50% splash damage to non-target. It increases the existing snake bite stacks by 1. It grants the Capture Whip to herself by 5 actions. It cannot initiate chase sequence. Now, after you use the Capture Whip HP attack, it performs the following. It lowers all enemies' Brave and HP based on 70% of her own attack. It recovers Brave to herself based on 70% of her own attack, and this effect cannot inflict break, and then after usage of the HP attack Capture Whip, it reverts back to its normal HP attack. Now, the Generous Heart buff that is granted to her after you use her LD ability actually helps the party. So the party gets a Stolen Brave Max Brave Overflow limit 20% up, a party attack up by 40%, and the party also gets a Brave damage delta up and an HP damage delta, both 20% each. Now, the Capture Whip buff that you get after you use her HP attack Capture Whip, all enemies will receive a speed down 10% and an attack down 40%, and this is all in the Capture Whip buff. This is not separate debuffs that the enemies will have. The party will get a Brave damage delta up increase when you are attacking the enemy while this buff is active, and after anyone acts, it reduces the duration of Capture Whip by 1 action, and it performs the following. It lowers all enemies' Brave and HP based on 70% of her own attack. It recovers Brave to herself based on 70% of her own attack. This effect cannot inflict break, and during burst mode, it only occurs once after burst mode ends. Her LD extension, what it does is it inflicts an additional stack of the Snakebite debuff. So in total, it'll be 3 stacks of the Snakebite. It turns into a 6-hit melee brave plus HP attack executed twice. It increases the brave potency by a tremendous amount, and it also extends the base duration of her Generous Heart by 4 actions. So it'll be a total of 8 actions. Now we'll switch over to Garland. Now Garland does get an LD extension with his LD ability. So when you are using his Bind of Chaos or his Bind of Chaos Plus, it turns into a 5-hit AoE melee brave plus single target HP attack executed twice. It increases the brave potency by a tremendous amount. It extends the base duration of Chains of Time by 2 actions. It adds the following effects to the special effect of Chains of Time. To himself, he gives an HP damage delta up and a Stolen Brave Max Brave Overflow limit up by 20%. The effect does not increase based on the stack count. It extends the base duration of buffs granted by 1 action, and this effect does not increase the base does not increase based on the stat count. The self-brave damage delta based on stat count now goes up by 10% to 20% to 30%, 40%, and then 50%. So you have 5 stacks on it. And it triggers the following attack after HP attacks, which excludes HP attack from the finish burst and chase sequence. It only occurs once per turn. So his follow-ups now is a 2-hit melee brave plus HP attack executed twice, and it allows for 120% stolen brave, max brave overflow. Garland's BT weapon, which is called Zamato, it equips him the finish burst ultimate conflict. It is a 15-hit AoE melee brave plus an AoE HP attack. It increases the brave damage dealt towards a single target by 60%. The max brave damage cap up is increased by 20% or 11,998. The max HP damage cup is increased by 100 or 199,998. And it deals split HP damage. It triggers the following burst effect for 6 actions for the party. Now, this burst effect is a stackable burst effect. And what I mean by that is basically every time that a party member acts consecutively, it improves the burst effect up to 4 times. But it resets if the enemy takes their turn midway through. So there are 4 different things that will be getting different types of increases with the amount of consecutive turns that either Garland or anybody else in the team acts. So first off, the brave damage dealt up starts off at 30%, and once you do up to 5 actions in total, it'll go up to 50%. The HP damage dealt starts off at 10% and will increase to 30% as long as nobody acts, or as long as the enemy does not act. The max brave damage cap up increases from 20% all the way up to 40% or up to 13,998 brave per hit. The stolen brave max brave overflow limit up increases starting at 20% all the way up to 40%. So it is a unique type of burst effect, but seeing as how Garland's kit does delay, it shouldn't be too much of an issue depending on what enemies it is that you are that you are encountering. So now we're at the point where I let you guys know my honest opinions on both characters, how I see them fit into Operaomnia today, and how I see them even up till now on the JP side. So we're going to start off with 7. So 7, the one nice thing about her is her calls, but there is kind of a thing about her calls that kind of bugs me a little bit. But if by chance you missed out on Jack's LD call, this is somewhat of a decent replacement to use until Jack's LD weapon gets reran in a banner. So what I mean with her LD call is pretty much if you use her first call, you will have a random stackable debuff of her snakebite debuff. So what I mean is that you will either get 1 stack, 2 stacks, or 3 stacks whenever you use her call ability on the field. But with those stacks, depending on which level of stacks you achieve, at level 1, you get a 10% defense down. At 2 stacks, you get a 25% defense down. Or at 3 stacks, you get a 50% defense down, which is similar to what Jack has. So her regular call ability, you have to take a chance with that. And you also get a speed down on the enemies as well. But if you use her LD call, it's different because it will inflict the enemy with the max stacks debuff, so you will have that 50% debuff, and that debuff lasts for 4 action. Also, the caller will be getting a stolen brave overflow limit and a brave damage dealt a brave damage dealt increase, both by 20%. So that's the only thing about her calls that really you kind of get a little bit of an increase if you're trying to do extra brave damage. Other than that though, I mean, outside of her being synergy from the event, I didn't really use her. I mean, she was convenient in terms of just call usage, and that's about it. Outside of that, I didn't really use her too much. Her kit doesn't really excite me. She is fun to use as a character, but I don't think it's really necessary to pull for her LD weapon unless she is a favorite of yours, or you are looking for somebody who has that stackable debuff, or somebody just different that you want to use. That would be really my only reason as to why you should post for 7. But if you did manage to get either Jack with his LD ability, I think you should be fine with just passing up on her and just waiting until she gets reran again. Now for Garland, it's going to be a different story. Now I'm going to remain neutral when I talk about Garland because he is a character that I am going to be going for 100% because of what he does, the high DPS that he does, the delay, his burst effect, etc, etc. I use Garland so much, and I didn't think that I was going to. After he got his BT weapon, he lasted for me for a couple months, but by that time there were stronger characters coming out. So Garland was not entirely benched, but he was still very much a viable option to use. And even with just his LD ability, it really does give him that extra like bonus because you get that delay, you get that follow-up, and you also get that strong HP damage that he does. But his BT effect is where it really shines on Garland because of the 4 things that he gives from his BT effect: that Brave damage delta, that HP damage delta, the max Brave cap increase, the overflow limit increase. And yes, I know that it is technically like a stackable type of a burst effect, but think about it. I mean, if you're going to be using Garland and you're going to be delaying the enemies like crazy, and if you have the right team cons to continue to push them back over and over and over, I mean, those percentages, those bonuses that you get from his BT effect is going to be so solid, and you're going to be seeing some big damage numbers from everybody in your team comp, which is one of the reasons why I was very happy to get his LD ability, or excuse me, his BT weapon when it first released on the JP side. Now, in terms of longevity, I didn't think that I was going to be using Garland for such a long time when I got his BT weapon. Like, his longevity is solid, and in my opinion, he does not get benched. Obviously, there will be characters later on that does a little bit more or about the same as Garland, but I mean, if you're needing somebody who does damage, who delays the enemy, who has follow-ups, and has a nasty BT effect for the party, Garland is definitely one that I would highly recommend players go for because of just all of that he provides in his kit. And then later on, when he gets his BT plus, he becomes a monster because he gets a rework, he gets his BT plus, his effects are bumped up, and he really just goes ham on the enemies. So he is a good investment now if you are considering picking up his BT weapon now, and then once he gets his BT plus, you know, he is an option to max out if you choose to do so. But overall though, Garland is a character with his BT weapon. He's a character that I would not pass up on, in my opinion, just because of everything that he provides from here until like months on end. Of course, once new characters come, then, you know, everybody will be using different characters. But like, Garland is one that a lot of people will be trying to pull for because of everything that he does. But overall, Garland is definitely, I don't know, like a 10 out of 10 for me in terms of whether or not you should pull for him. But let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about both characters. Me, myself, I'll be throwing some tickets for 7, but I will be gemming for Garland's kit because I do need his LD weapon and his BT weapon. So the chances of me is going to be a little bit harder, but we'll see. But anyways, though, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your plans are going to be for both characters. Other than that, though, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next video.